And now it's time for Power of Prophecy with your host, former professor at the University of Texas at Austin, career United States Air Force officer, and best-selling author, Texe MARRS.
Hello, friends. This is Texe MARRS. Welcome to another edition of Power of Prophecy. Well, we have an Academy Award winner, Best Picture, and, I can't believe it. Wanda and I think only one time, we've been married, almost 40 years now, but we've only watched just a little bit of the Oscars. They call them the Oscars. They give you this golden trophy, gold-plated, I suppose, gold-looking. It's the Academy Awards for the Best Picture and the Best Actress and Best Sound and all this stuff. We've only watched a part of one before in 40 years, but for some reason we were sitting at home and, we decided to, why not? We said, there's the Oscars. We thought we'd watch them to see how much they smashed, all these Hollywood celebrities would smash into Donald Trump. Just for fun, we watched it a bit. And I'm glad we did, because it was the stupidest thing, that all those celebrities got of it. It was so funny. But, in any case, if you know what happened, the big problem at the end there were, they'd given out all the envelopes and only had one award left, Best Picture of the Year. And they sent out two famous, actresses, Warren Beatty, and Faye Dunaway. And 50 years ago, they had been in the movie, Bonnie and Clyde. So I guess a 50-year reunion or something. They sent them out, these two, old, faded actors, to read the envelope. That's all they had to do. They had this big old envelope, great big old envelope, and all they had to do is open it up and read it. It's simple. And it was going to tell who won Best Picture. Now, a movie named La La Land, which they say is a musical. Like the old 40s and 1930s musicals? Sometimes Juan and I will watch one of those on TV. Not often, but we'll watch one of those musicals. And they're sort of pleasant, I suppose. I don't know. I don't dig them much. But anyway, they had all these famous stars, and they'd have all these musicals, and mostly comedies and romance and things like that. And they had this new movie called La La Land. La La Land. And it won 6 awards up to that time. And everybody thought, well, La La Land is going to win. It's going to win the big one for Best Picture. It already won for the Best Actress. Emma Stone, I've never seen her before. She's a young, very pretty girl. And she wore very tasteful. By the way, they didn't wear those sexy outfits like they usually do. And I was glad of that. Those see-through dresses and all that garbage. They just wore, most of them wore everyday nice, well, not every day, but their fancy gowns and all that stuff. But they hid most of most parts of the body. At least they're more modest than they usually are. But there we were sitting down watching. We sort of turned on the Oscars sort of late, and we were just commenting how silly some of the comments had been. For example, one guy came out and said, that he did not believe in walls, no walls, and everybody applauded him wildly. And they're talking about Trump's wall that he's building, to keep out all the Mexicans and the South Americans and so forth. But he doesn't believe in walls. And I was sitting there just laughing, and I told Wanda, well, I wonder if does he live in a house? Does it have walls? I bet it's locked up. I bet the guy lives in a mansion, $1 million mansion, but he doesn't believe in walls. They keep us divided, he said. Well, yeah, they do. You ever heard the slogan, the old saying, high fences make good neighbors? There it is for you, folks. But anyway, he doesn't believe in walls, And I was thinking, all those stars, they all live behind walls. They've got armed guards to protect them that they can pay for. You and I don't have the money to pay for armed guards. They do. These celebrities are they're laughers. They really are. But anyway, they came on with Warren Beatty and Faye Dunaway and opened the envelope, and bingo, it was the wrong envelope. It was the only envelope left. But it gave the Academy Award to La La Land. So, Faye Dunaway just quickly said, she read it and said, La La Land won for Best Picture of the Year. So they brought all the La La Land people up. And that was their 7th Academy Award. Oh, really great. But then suddenly, something started happening in the back. Some little guy came out with, the speakers over his head, and he was saying, no, it's a mistake. And then this guy, and finally a guy came up to the mic and interrupted the guy that was, speaking and such. And he said, no, La La Land didn't win. It was Moonlight. You won. Come up here, Moonlight. Well, the people on the stage already, there were about 10 or 12 of them. They were all, actors and everything from La La Land. They were all up on stage. They were holding their Academy Awards, but suddenly they're told, no, there's been a mistake made. The real winner is, Moonlight. So then the Moonlight people came up, and they had to shush all the La La Land people to push them off stage. And it took a while to do that, and they were sort of shocked. They didn't want to quite give up all of their little golden trophies they had just been given. So it was a big mistake. But and Warren Beatty, he was very embarrassed. He's quite old now, and it looked like he was very feeble, and maybe he was just the guy's never appeared too smart, to be honest with you. He's sort of a dummy, adult. But I thought, well, golly, the guy's way past his prime, but surely he can read that envelope. Well, he did. Well, they gave him the wrong envelope, but how could they give him the wrong one? It was the only one, But they said that this other group had won with this unknown film, unknown actors. It's a black drama called Moonlight. It won. Now, everybody was shocked because they really did think that La La Land was going to win, and won. But this show called Moonlight won. Now, I told Wanda, I said, everybody's wondering what happened. But they couldn't believe it. And Jimmy Kimmel, the comedian, he has his own show on one of the networks. He was up there trying to make excuses, and Warren Beatty was trying to explain it. And he said, folks, that's the envelope I was given, and blah, 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 They were up there all embarrassed and so forth. Nobody really knows. They claim they have 2 executives, accountants from PricewaterhouseCoopers. That's one of the nation's largest accounting firms, up there to guard the envelopes and to make sure the right envelope gets given out. Well, they messed up. The 2 PricewaterhouseCoopers executives messed up. It really wasn't Warren Beatty or Faye Dunaway. And by the way, she made her break fast. She got out of there. She didn't want to be blamed for anything. And Warren Beatty goes to the microphone and says, folks, I really did what I thought I was supposed to do, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Now, here's the bottom line, folks. I think it could have been a conspiracy. Now, some folks they're blaming everything on Russia nowadays. And I read the internet, and some people said they think it's Russia did it. Russia hacked the Oscars. It should have been La La Land, but they hacked the Oscars. Well, we know Russia didn't do anything, and that's so silly. And these stupid Democrats are just trying to blame Trump and Russia for everything. But think about this show, Moonlight. Now, I haven't seen any of these movies. In fact, I'll tell you the truth. I haven't been to a movie house for probably 25 years. I know I'm oldie fuddy-duddy, and I don't keep up with the movies. You'll have to forgive me for that. I'm sorry. I'm not one of the with it cares. I'm just not gung-ho for these Hollywood celebrities and all their movies. But I did read a little bit about Moonlight, and it turns out that now I can understand why Moonlight won. Was it a great movie? Is it a great movie? No, of course not. But it's a movie about black people. And of course, Hollywood is going to make sure the blacks get, as much as they can. Now, Hollywood is all Jews, all white, and maybe a few little foreigners here and there. But they don't like being called racist. And they don't like it when somebody suggests that the blacks aren't getting a fair turn. So they wanted to make sure, of course, that a black movie won. That's why Moonlight won. Now, in addition to that, in addition to these unknown black stars winning with the movie Moonlight, was the plot of Moonlight. Now, La La Land, I haven't watched it, but it's supposed to be a lighthearted comedy. But now, Moonlight is a very serious drama about blacks, about how they're always shafted and everything, and they live in the ghetto, and they're so poor, and they're so mistreated, and of course they gotta have welfare and their own drugs, but that's understandable because they've been so discriminated against, and so it's okay for them to be drug addicts and all that kind of stuff and live in the ghetto. And the main character evidently is a transgender boy. He's a homosexual. He looks to be about 12, but they say he's maybe 16. I don't know. So think about it. A transgender black boy having homosexual sex in the movie. And they deal with it, from what I read, very tenderly and sensitively, whatever that means. I don't know what that means, but very tenderly and sensitively. And that's why it won, of course. It's probably a ratty movie. It's probably stupid, ridiculous, but it's about a transgender little homosexual black boy. And it looked like to me, his drug-addled mother who kept pushing him all the time to go out and bring home some drugs, bring home some more dope. Oh boy. That's movies. That's Hollywood's best today. Now, I don't think Hollywood ever was any good, but think of the days when they had, Clark Gable and Marilyn Monroe and all those supposed superstars. Now they've got transgender little black boys that are performing homosexual acts. And that's their movie. That's their best picture. Oh boy. Oh my goodness. That's just sickening, folks. It is. Now listen, if you want to see Moonlight, oh no, I don't want to even suggest it. No, I know you don't want to see it. You don't want to see that. That's a junkyard. That's a trash bin. Oh boy. By the way, Leonardo DiCaprio. He's a big star, and he was evidently there. I must have missed the part where he came in. Maybe he was a presenter or something. But Leonardo DiCaprio, I think that's how you pronounce that name, DiCaprio, is a big star. Now, he's the guy that says we've got to save Mother Earth. If we don't do something, California is going to be lost. All of the West Coast is going underwater. And, of course, all of the East Coast is going underwater. And most of Europe and Australia, all these islands in Hawaii is going to be underwater. It's going to be a tragedy, a catastrophe. We must save Mother Earth. Now, what he knows about the environment can be put in a thimble. Now, some of you don't know what a thimble is. But a thimble is it's smaller than the tiniest little teacup. Smaller than that. It's used in sewing. My wife puts it on her finger so that she doesn't stick a needle in her hand or something. But DiCaprio, this environmental wacko, to prepare for the Oscars, and he cares so much about the environment. Now, I want to keep that on the back burner for now. He had his hairstylist flown in special for the event to do his eyebrows. He couldn't just have anybody do his eyebrows. And he could just sort of, wet his, index finger and sort of smooth them down. I think that's what I do. I'm old fashioned. I usually just take my washcloth and just run across my eyebrows to get stuff out and, straighten them out. But I'm old fashioned. I just use a washcloth. And what, 1/100th of 1 cent of water. But DiCaprio had to spend thousands to get his hairstylist there to do his eyebrows. In fact, he flew the guy 7,500 miles by jet. 7,500 miles to do his eyebrows. Now, do you know how much gasoline, how much jet fuel that took to fly his eyebrow artist? They call him an artist because he knows how to do your eyebrows. Ooh, do your eyebrows. Ooh. I bet I'm going to ask my wife, Wanda, But I'm just going to go there and say, Wanda, do you think I'd be prettier? Do you think I'd be a lot better looking if I got a hairstylist to come in and do my eyebrows? Now, I bet she'd just laugh. She'd laugh. She'd laugh so hard. She'd hit the floor laughing. But that's what DiCaprio did. Now, you would think he'd want to save some of that jet fuel. I mean, he cares so much for the migrants and the immigrants, and he just loves them so much. He's full of empathy for them. And that old mean Trump, he's such a bad man. He doesn't care. He's going to arrest all those immigrants. He's going to break up families. He's going to put them in jail. And all they wanted was to come over here and get free welfare and, get the earned income credit and get free dental care and free everything. That's all they wanted. But you see, I really believe in DiCaprio. I really believe he's got the right combination. He's with it. Now, now let's go from the Oscars. By the way, I forgot to tell you, today is the Secrets volume. That's why I'm telling you about Moonlight. That's why we're talking about Leonardo DiCaprio, because I want you to know these secrets. See, maybe he didn't want people to know about his eyebrows being, smoothed out and, put together by some big artist. I don't know. Well, in any case, let's talk a little bit about something else. Let's talk about the town meetings. Several years ago, the Tea Parties went to these town meetings, and they asked some very poignant, pertinent questions. Why Congress was just, doing nothing. Back in the days of Harry Truman, that's when it started. And he accused the Republican Congress, he was a Democrat, And Harry Truman said there's a do-nothing Congress here. That's why I don't get anything done, is a do-nothing Congress. Well, hey, that's the way it's always been. There's always been a do-nothing Congress. And I understand that they have about, on the approval rating chart, they rate it like 9%. So only 9% approve of Congress. That's Republicans and Democrats. 9% of the people approve. 91% do not approve. So you sort of get where they're at, right? But they have these town meetings they started having. Now the Democrats don't have them anymore because they're afraid to meet the voters. I mean, they don't want to go out there and say Obamacare is good for you, and everybody will jump up and want to throttle them. They don't want that, and they don't want to explain why we're $20 trillion in debt, and 10 of those 20 trillion came about in the last 8 years under Obama. And the Democrats just don't want to explain all that, so they don't have town meetings. But the Republicans started having them, and it seems like a pretty good idea. They announce they're going to be in a certain auditorium or maybe a gymnasium or someplace on a certain date and time. And then all their constituents from their district show up. And there's usually only about 50 or 100 people there. But now the Democrats have started glomming onto this, saying, ooh, this is a good way to embarrass the Republicans. So the Democrats began to meet together and plot out how they could go as a group to these town hall meetings of the Republican congressmen, both senators and, the representatives. And they've been going there. And boy, they've been making a fuss. And now it appears, though, that they're paid to go there. Now, it's a little bit different when you're paid to go somewhere. Or you go voluntarily because you really care. And they meet before the town halls and they decide their strategy. And they secretly tape one of these things by some group called Indivisible. It's a bunch of Democrats. Actually, they're a bunch of communists, but they call themselves Democrats because that's the name that, Democrats really have is communist. But they like to be called progressives. They're progressives. They don't even like liberal anymore. They're progressives. And that sounds so much better. Just like they don't want to be called abortionists. No, they're pro-choice. You got to use your terms right. Pro-choice. You see, they don't believe in abortion. They just believe in choice. You know, they believe it's, you need to choose to kill your baby. That's choice to them. Well, in any case, they've been going to these town meetings, and at this indivisible pre-meeting, they strategize. For example, they say, okay, we got to sit throughout the building. We don't want to all sit as one group. You know, you sit here, you sit here, you sit here. And we go early so we can get the best seats. And if the Republicans come in, they can sit in the back. We'll all have the seats up front. And we'll have these signs already pre-made up. So, and they all are hand-printed signs usually to make people think that they're, you know, this is like a spontaneous event. But they go there and they plan on what to say. You know, you, Jack, you bring this up. Sally, you bring this up. Linda, you bring this up. Trying to embarrass the congressman. Okay? And I was seeing one, and one woman got up and she said, "You're going to do away with Obamacare, Congressman. And I need Obamacare. Obamacare has saved the lives of 3 of my family members. It kept us from going homeless." I was wondering about that. Obamacare kept her whole family from going homeless? How did they do that? I thought that was for medical care. Had nothing to do with housing, but anyway, you know, she's probably just lying, you know. But that's the kind of stuff they come up with. Well, the problem is sometimes you just can't control these wackos. I know they meet privately. They meet before the event, and they try to make it look as bad as they can, make it look like it was all spontaneous by them, that they're not a group, they all come there individually, and all that nonsense. But you know, what really gets to them is when you pray. And this one congressman, that's the mistake he made. He started off the meeting with a prayer. Now, one thing you don't want to do is pray when communists are around, or Democrats. Let's just call them Democrats. Because this congressman, he called on this guy, evidently a local pastor, and said, "Would you lead us in prayer to start the meeting?" Now, that's his right to do that. This isn't Congress. I mean, he has a right to do anything he wants to. It's a town meeting, and it's not scheduled, or it's not, you know, like an event that he had to do. He voluntarily did it for his constituents. But the guy started praying, and oh my goodness, the people went nuts. Now, only the people I'm talking about, the town meeting people, the people that had plotted out to go there to try to disrupt the meeting, to try to embarrass the congressman. They went gaga over the fact that he was praying. And some of them started screaming, "You can't pray. No, we don't want to hear that prayer." Oh, some of them started hollering out, "Separation of church and state, separation of church and state." And then it really got bad when he finished his prayer and he said, "In the name of Jesus." Oh, you could have thought. Now, I've seen this film myself. I looked at it on InfoWars. The people went nuts, these Democrats. When he said in the name of Jesus, they went absolutely bonkers. And they started chanting, "Lucifer, Lucifer, give us Lucifer, Lucifer." Think about that, folks. Boy, they revealed themselves, didn't they? They revealed exactly who they were following. Lucifer. That's all the Democrats that go to these town meetings. They were calling out, "Lucifer. We want Lucifer." And they began booing Jesus. Booing the name of Jesus. Boo! Wow. Booing Jesus and calling out for Lucifer. That's the Democratic way, folks. That's it. Now you know who they are. They're a bunch of Luciferians. Now let me tell you, folks, they hate you. They despise you. They can't stand you. They want you dead. They want Donald Trump dead. They want all of us to get out of America. The Hollywood celebrities and all of these Luciferians in the Democrat Party, they want us out. They can't believe that Trump won. They can't believe that the forgotten American is now being remembered. They can't believe it. And they hate it. They hate it. Well, that's just too bad. That's just too bad. Well, Trump's making pretty good on his promises, isn't he? He's only been in office, less than 6 weeks? Boy, he stirred up a lot. I mean, he's really stirring them up. And they're claiming that they're going to, impeach him. But they can't impeach him on anything. They couldn't even impeach Obama. Look at all the lying he did. All the chicanery he was up to. And Bill Clinton, they tried to impeach him. They couldn't impeach him either. Well, they impeached him, but they didn't convict him in the impeachment. So they say they're going to impeach Donald Trump. And they're looking for everything they can. Now, I understand that one of them in particular, Nancy Pelosi, she's so dumb. And there's another one, too, a black woman named Maxine Waters. Now, Maxine Waters, she doesn't know anything about what's going on in the world. And she was just railing one day, and I was watching her on TV, and she said, and she says, and Korea needs to get out of Crimea. I think that's what she said. Something about, yeah, Russia, that's right. Russia invaded Korea. Yeah, Jerry's over here correcting me. Thank you, Jerry. She says Russia, she's claiming that Russia is controlling Trump, that Putin of Russia is running America. Behind the scenes, he's running America, is telling Trump what to do. I say if he can do that, well, good for him. Because no one else has been able to tell Trump what to do. But in any case, that's what Maxine Waters claims. She's a black congresswoman from California. And she says that Russia is such a bad country, they invaded Korea. And while she was talking, the guys in back of her, they looked at each other and they made the funniest look. They knew she had messed up. You see, Russia never invaded Korea, but they did invade Crimea, a little province in the Ukraine. And by the way, before they supposedly invaded, they really didn't invade at all. They just took it over. They had a referendum there of the people. And it turned out that 96% of the people of Crimea wanted to be part of Russia. They did not want to be part of Ukraine. Well, when you get 96% of the people that want to be part of your country, I say, Ukraine, let them go. But Ukraine wants to be a dictatorship. And they told the people of Crimea, mostly Russians, we're not going to let you go. But they had to, because Russia had a couple of military bases there. Maxine Waters didn't even know the difference between Korea and Crimea. By the way, Trump tonight is going to give a big speech. His first speech to the National Congress there in the Capitol building. And all the Republicans and Democrats are all getting together. And it turns out, though, that Maxine Waters says, I'm not going to be there. She's boycotting Trump's speech. That woman is dumb. These people, they're a comedy show. I do not want it to end, folks. I promise you. I watch it every day. I get the greatest pleasure from it. I laugh. It's fantastic. Keep it up, Democrats. Boy, they are proving how dumb they are. And it's funny. Well, I'm going to talk to you about some more secrets when we return on the other side. This is Texe MARRS. You're listening to Power of Prophecy. We're going to have a little message, and I'll be right back. Feast of the Beast. That's the title of my new book. It's only $15. And, this book, it's an amazing book. I've read it over and over. I keep reading my own books. And, when I'm on talk shows, I don't even have to look at the book. I've met a lot of authors. They have to go back and read it and try to figure out, they have a lot of ghostwriters. When you have a ghostwriter, well, you don't even know what's been written in your own book. It has your name on it, but, well, that's not with Texe MARRS books. I write every word in my book. And so, well, I know the book. And this book has been so important that I would read it and read it and read it and read it over again. Now, it's not that I love my own writing. I know there are a lot of writers better than me. It's just this book is so important. I mean, this book tells you just like it is. Boy. For example, there's this amazing verse in Isaiah. I want to read it to you. Isaiah chapter 26. It says, "For behold, the Lord cometh out of his place." That's heaven. "To punish the inhabitants of the earth for their iniquity." Oh, yes, Jesus Christ is going to come again. And it says, "In that day, the Lord, with his sore and great and strong sword, shall punish Leviathan, the piercing serpent." I want to read that again. "In that day, the Lord, with his sore and great and strong sword, shall punish Leviathan, the piercing serpent. Even Leviathan, that crooked serpent. And he shall slay the dragon that is in the sea." Wow. You can read about this also in Job. You can read about Leviathan. And there's a interesting book. You don't have to read it, but I've read it for you. That's what I do. I read books for you. It's called The Feast of Leviathan, written by a Jewish writer. And it's actually a book of humorous stories. He says we Jews should be happy because there is coming a great feast of Leviathan. Well, I wanted to know, why are they going to be so happy? What happens at the Feast of Leviathan? I mean, surely they're not going to feast Leviathan. I mean, because on that day, the Lord is coming back. And he's going to punish Leviathan, who is the piercing serpent. He's even that crooked serpent. And he shall slay the dragon that is in the sea. Well, who is that serpent? Oh, you read about him in the book of Revelation. Oh, it's too bad the Jews don't have the book of Revelation. Because the book of Revelation says that Leviathan is also called Abaddon. That's a Hebrew word meaning destroyer. And not only that, but the serpent. It says that the serpent is known also as Satan, that old serpent. He's the same one that was in the Garden of Eden with Adam and Eve. The same one that told them, you won't die if you eat from this tree. No, you'll be as gods. Of course, he lied to them, didn't he? Yes, he did. They turned out not to be gods. But in the Jewish religion and Judaism, they say that Adam and Eve did the right thing when they ate of that fruit because they became gods. He goes right along with Satan, doesn't it? In Judaism. And that's what Feast of the Beast does, this book. It tells you the story of Leviathan, Abaddon, the destroyer. This is the last days of the Jews. They're going to have a great day of purification. I've heard that before. I've read about to purify. During the Holocaust, they said that there was a great days of purification. That's when they clean everything up. That's when they kill. You see, they do it by fire. They purify things. And the Jews say we're going to have a great day of purification. That's when all the Gentiles will be dealt with. According to the Jewish Talmud, they'll all be dealt with on that date, and they'll all be beheaded. Only the Jews will remain. Now there will be a few Gentiles remain. Those who renounce Jesus Christ. Those who give all of their possessions and belongings and agree to be the slaves of the Jews, who, of course, are God's, and the poor little Gentiles throughout the earth make up about 99% of the people are going to be slain. That's the way it is. Who's going to slay you? Well, Leviathan, the serpent. He's the friend of the Jews. It's going to be an amazing time. And this book tells you all about it. What's going to happen when the Jews have their feast of the beast? What's going to happen during that day of purification? This is the first book ever written for both Jews and Gentiles, which fully explains the doctrines of Kabbalistic Judaism. Now, why is it the first book? Well, I guess just because God wanted me to write it. That's why. And I wrote it. You know, I've had a heart attack in the last year. But I got finished with my heart attack, and I got down to writing more. I wrote this book after I had a heart attack. Oh, the devil wanted to take me. But I fooled him, didn't I? I said, I'm going to do more for you, Lord. What else can I do for you, Lord? And he had me do this book. I also did another book called The Holy Serpent of the Jews. Tells you who their God really is. He's the serpent. You say that's incredible. That can't be. I will not believe that. Okay. But all the rabbis say that. The rabbis I quote in Feast of the Beast say that. You don't want to believe Texe MARRS? Well, I'm an idiot. I don't know anything. I've done all this research for years and years. I'm 72 years old. I've spent over 40 years looking into these things. And who am I to listen to? But you could listen to these rabbis. The rabbis are so smart, so wise. I mean, in their Talmud, they actually have a contest with God, and they beat him for knowledge. God goes to see the rabbis when he wants to enlighten himself. You didn't know that? God goes to the rabbis when he needs advice. The rabbis. You say that's incredible. I'm just telling you the way it is. Yeah, that's the way it is. And they've told us what the end times are going to look like. Now, you can go to 1,000 preachers. I encourage you to go to 1,000 preachers of every denomination in America. Baptist, Episcopal, Lutheran, non-denominational. Go to all of them. And say to them, who is the God of Judaism? Not one will know. Well, maybe one or two have read my book by now. But the chief rabbis know. Oh, yes, they know. They know who it is. They know his name is Leviathan. I want you to know, friends, you can get this book for $15. That's all. Just $15. Please add $5 shipping and handling. Order it from Power of Prophecy, 1708 Patterson Road, Austin, Texas, 78733. You can phone us toll free, 1-800-234-9673. Or you can go to our website, powerofprophecy.com. If that's too long for you, well, it shouldn't be. But you can go to texemars.com. Be sure to spell my name right. Most people don't. Texe, very different, isn't it? TexeMarrs.com. TexeMarrs.com. I don't know why they put an E on the end of my name. Well, I really do. They didn't know how to spell it. They debated over spelling my name. But anyway, I'll tell you about that sometime in the future. Interesting, isn't it? Texe. That's my name, real name. Texe. But don't tell anybody. I don't like that name, Texe. I just go by Texe. Okay. Let's return to our regular program. And we're talking about the Feast of the Beast and much more today. We're having a volume of secrets. Hey, here in Texas, very interesting. You know, Obama, before he left office, one of the last things he did was put out this edict, this executive order. He directed the education department to come down hard on those schools and colleges and sports teams and so forth to protect the transgenders. Now, what is a transgender? That's a person who really doesn't know whether they're a boy or a girl. They're a transgender. That means they go across boundary lines. Now, they may look like a little boy, and they may have, equipment, or what do you call that? Genitals. I just went ahead and said it. Okay. That look like a little boy. But somehow their parents have got them all mixed up, and they say, I'm a little girl, but they're little boys. Or they're little girls, but they say, I like to be a little boy. So they're not equipped physically to be a boy, but they want to be a boy. So they're transgenders, they say. You know, Caitlyn Jenner. Now, Bruce Jenner wasn't that his name, Bruce? He won the Olympic decathlon or something like that. But he changed into a woman now, he says. Well, folks, you can't change. You are what you are. But he says, I prefer to be a woman. He changed his name from Bruce to Caitlyn. Caitlyn Jenner. That's his name, okay? He says, now I'm a girl. And he has long hair and wears makeup and all that. And he claims to be a girl. But he has all the equipment of being a boy. Unless he had it cut off and all that. I guess you can do all that kind of stuff. Now these little boys and girls out there, they're getting confused because they go to their mom and dad and they say, what's the difference between a boy and a girl? And then the parents say, well, you can be whatever you want. That's the stupid parents do. And here in Texas, one of the little boys is a wrestler. Now he looks, about 15 years old or so? I don't know how old, 15, 16. He's a high schooler in Texas. He just won the wrestling championship in high school. He's a boy. And he has muscles and everything, has no breast. And of course he has genitals just like a little boy. He is a boy. But he says, I'm a girl. Well, under Obama's order, you are what you say you are. If you say I'm a boy, you can be a girl, but you're going to be a boy. I know that gets people mixed up, doesn't it? Of course it does. It's stupid. It's an idiotic thing. And it defies science. There is not one scientist in the whole world who will agree with a boy who says I'm a girl. Or a girl who says I'm a boy. Because they don't exist. There's no such thing. Except in their mind. They're in, to use a word, I guess I better, now don't copy this, Warren Beatty, but they're in la-la land, okay? They're in la-la land. Now, so this wrestler, he takes testosterone, a male hormone, to make you more masculine and strong. Now, I don't know why he gets away with that, because I thought in Texas sports, the Texas sports program does not allow you to take testosterone. But they let this this boy take testosterone, which made him more of a male. But he claims I'm a girl. That gets it really confused. And he beat all the little girls. They're wrestlers. Now that doesn't seem fair to me, does it you? We know that male athletes are stronger, bigger. And he made himself even stronger by taking testosterone injections. But he just won the state championship. And all those little girls that he beat, well, they're out in the cold. It's not fair, is it? Meanwhile, in some other state, a swimmer won. A swimmer says, I'm a girl. But he's a boy. He won the swimming championship of his high schools. It doesn't seem fair. Girls should swim with girls and boys with boys. And if you're a girl and you can swim better than the boys, then go ahead and swim against them. And if you win, you're a great girl. You're really a powerful woman. But don't call yourself a transgender. That's just stupid. It's just dumb. It's unscientific. Well, guess what? Our president, Donald Trump, he put out a new presidential order, and it undid Obama's. In one fell swoop of the pen, he changed it all. Now, it's back to the way it was. Just because you say you're a man doesn't make you a man or a woman or vice versa. Donald Trump changed it. Now, I didn't know you could change with a pen slice. Did you? Yeah, you change everything for all of America. Now, Target, Target, the big food store and department store chain, hundreds and hundreds of stores across America. Target, they really loved what Obama did. They love it. And they said, we're going to have transgender bathrooms. We're going to allow the boys to go in the girls and the girls in the boys if they say they're a boy or a girl. So they allow dirty old men to go into a little girl's bathroom. In fact, there was one case I read where, this little girl went in, she was like 10 years old, and she went in this bathroom, and there was a man out, and some wicked guy, and he had his pants down, and he was playing with himself. And the girl runs out of the little bathroom. The girl runs out of the bathroom. The man, well, first of all, let me tell you what happened. She ran to her mother and said, there's a man in there with his pants down, and he's playing with himself. And the mother went to the store manager, and the store manager said, oh, that's a transgender. It's okay for him to do that. Oh, boy. He's a transgender. It's okay for him to do that. Woo. And that mother has never been back to Target again. And they say that she's a Democrat, too. Meanwhile, Mario Cuomo, one of those networks, CBS, ABC, NBC, I don't know which one he's on. But Mario Cuomo says he doesn't see anything wrong with this policy. Now, he said, I've read about this 12-year-old girl. This is another girl now. And she says she told her daddy she doesn't want to see old men. She doesn't want to see the genitals of old men in her bathroom. Now that seems like a reasonable request for me. Do you, my friends? Now listen, I've got several grandkids. I don't want to see them go into some bathroom. Some dirty old man. He can call himself anything he wants. He can call himself a girl, but he's not a girl. He's a man. I don't want him to be exhibiting his genitals to my little granddaughter. That is demonic. That's satanic. But Mario Cuomo said, I don't see anything wrong with that. Why, this 12-year-old girl, she needs to be taught tolerance by her father. This 12-year-old girl has no right to complain about this, says Mario Cuomo. If there's an older man in her bathroom showing his genitals to her, she should just accept that. That's what we do to protect the transgenders. How about protecting the other little girls? The millions. I mean, how many transgenders are in all of America? I bet there's not 0.5%. But there's millions of little girls. So Mario Cuomo does not mind a 12-year-old girl. In fact, she needs to be taught tolerance. No, I'll tell you what, Mario Cuomo, you need to be taught that you're out on the street begging for food because you haven't got a job anymore. You are an idiot. You're an evil, wicked, dumb, stupid. Well, I wish I had more phrases. My goodness. Or maybe he's just an innocent Democrat. Oh, boy. Well, anyway, Target, they went too far. I was reading today in the newspaper that their profits are down. You see, the Christians have banned. They've got a boycott. They say, don't go to Target. And guess what? Many Christians are not. I haven't been. We don't go to Target. Jerry here, sitting here, he says, I don't go to Target either. I used to like Target. They're clean stores, had good food lines, but no more. No. They cater to the transgenders. They don't cater to me. They don't please me. I don't want dirty old men. A lot of these men just say I'm a transgender just to get at the little girls. You know what's going on? Or they'll say I'm a transgender just to get at the little boys. Target is losing money. They don't know what they're closing up 200 stores, and they have problems. And they insist that it's not because of the Christian boycott. No, it has. Our stores losing money have nothing to do with that. But Kohl's is still making pretty good money. Walmart's still doing pretty good, but not Target. You know, when Christians start banning people, they've got power. That's your choice, my friends. You don't want to go shop at a store? Well, good. Well, don't shop at Target. Don't shop at Target. They want to cater to transgenders? Let them. And they go all the way down to the last store as far as I'm concerned before I'll shop there. Well, meanwhile, we switched from Target stores and Mario Tolerant Cuomo to the Dakota pipeline. You know, there's another thing that Trump did good. He okayed the Dakota pipeline up in the Dakotas. And he okayed the XL pipeline through America. In fact, he's okaying all the pipelines. And why not? Why not? We have more oil and more gas in the United States than any other country in the world. We're like sitting on a huge ship full of it. It's everywhere. And we're going to start selling it overseas. And you wait and see. Within a couple years, there'll be hundreds of thousands of oil field workers, pipeline workers that were denied jobs before under Obama and under the stupid, wicked, nutty environmentalists. Now, they went up to Dakota, these protesters. They didn't have any jobs. They're all on welfare. They get their welfare checks. They take their earned income credit. They get their food stamps and all that, and pretty soon they got $30,000 or $40,000 in their pocket. And they go up to the Dakotas, and they built a tent city, and they started protesting in this tent city. And they were trashy people. And they said that there are thousands of bags of trash everywhere. They just put all their trash in a bag and then throw the bag out in the field. They said they've muddied and dirtied the place terribly. These thousands of Dakota pipeline protesters. And when the feds got on there and said, listen, you got to leave this place. This isn't your land. You got to leave. They said, okay. And they set fire to everything. And 2 people were injured by the fires. Wow. 2 people are near death because of the fires they set. They care so much for life, don't they? They care so much for the environment. They trashed it out. And then they burned these people. Wow. There you are. The environmentalist. Meanwhile, Trump, he's cut back on the Environmental Protection Agency. Hey, the Department of the Interior also is bad. I know about those jackals. They're the ones that tell you can't ever use your land again because there might be a little bug on it. But you can pay the taxes on it. That's what they told us here at Power of Prophecy. We own a beautiful piece of land right on a major highway. It was landlocked by houses and everything else. But suddenly they decided that there could be a bird that flew on it. Now, we had never seen this particular bird, but they said it was an endangered bird. And they told me, Texe, MARRS, you can never use that land. We were going to build a new building, but we couldn't do it. I said, well, what am I going to do with the land? They said, oh, it's yours. You can do with it what you want. I said, well, I can't build on it. It's worthless to me. Well, that's just too bad. I said, well, who's going to pay taxes on it? They said, you are. I'm going to pay the taxes on it? Well, of course, it's your land. You just can never use it. For hundreds of years, you'll never be able to use it. The bird will be on it. Now, in my particular case, I just discovered that there was no bird on it and that they were lying to me. It's for the hell of it, I guess you could say. I'm serious, folks. They actually said there's a bird on that property, and it turned out there was no bird on the property. It's only a couple of acres anyway. They were lying. They showed me the picture, and they said, here, the bird is in this picture. I said, there's no bird in this picture. They went, yeah, you're right. I said, yeah, you better believe I'm right. There's no bird in this picture. Well, you can't see anything in this picture. It's an aerial photograph. You can't see the trees even. You can't make them out of the trees. It's all one big green mess. Well, yes, that's true. Well, okay. Until that time, they'd given me a letter saying, if you go on that land, if you do anything on it, if you put a trail on it for hiking, we will take you to court and we'll sue you. Wow. But they told me I could pay taxes on it. Isn't that great? Now, if I didn't pay taxes, then the government, of course, could seize my land. They could foreclose on it because I didn't pay the taxes on the land that I couldn't use. Now, there's a case just like mine. I think it's up in Wisconsin. A man owns 2 small little lots on a river. And they're telling him, that there's, I guess, that it's potential. It's not even an endangered species, but there could be cave bugs on that land. Cave bugs. Whew. And they say you can never use that land, but you can keep paying the taxes on it. And if you don't pay taxes, we'll just take it away from you. Ha, ha, ha. But now that Trump's in, he's changing the orders. And, the Environmental Protection Agency, we can't take people's land away. You see, that's called a taking, folks. And they can only do that for eminent domain. And they have to pay you the cost of land. I want them to pay us. You want the land? You want it kept pristine and pure? The birds on it? Pay me the cost of the land. We don't have to pay you anything. We're not taking away your land. You just can never use it again. Well, what do you call taking away? Well, thank you, Donald Trump. They need to close that Environmental Protection Agency. They need to close all of that. By the way, it was the U.S. Forest Service. The U.S. Forest Service that took away our rights. And this has been done to thousands of individuals across America. People who scrimped and saved all of their life, most of them, to have a little piece of land that they could call their own. And then it was taken away by these dictators of government, these bureaucrats, these communists. Well, I'm getting a little bit distraught here. I think I need to take a little break and go do my eyebrows. Get an artist to do my eyebrows. That may calm me down, You got anybody you could recommend, Jerry? Who does your eyebrows? Jerry said, you do your own eyebrows? Oh, man. Look, read up about DiCaprio. He does 7,500 miles. His artist flew in. Jerry, we're missing out. I'm telling you, Jerry's, here in my studio. He's my chief engineer. And I tell you, we're so far behind these people. And this Moonlight, it's a great movie. It's a great movie. Yeah, really. Yeah, it's a little bit, sort of, queer, but, that's okay. Anyway, I was just reading this little final thing I have for you today, folks. This is from Coyle's Masonic Encyclopedia, published by McCoy Publishing. Coyle's Masonic Encyclopedia. And they asked this, what is the name of God? They say the name of God was lost. This is on page 691. They call it the lost word. The name of God is lost for Freemasons. What do you think about that? You think I should tell them what the name is, Jerry? His name is Jesus. That's the name above all names, it says in the Bible. But these poor Masons, they run around saying we need more light because the name of God is lost. It's the lost word in Freemasonry. They do have the sacred word. You know what the sacred word is in Freemasonry? It's the same as the Jews have. It's Abaddon. And that is in the book of Revelation, believe it or not. It means destroyer. That's the sacred word in Freemasonry. Folks, ask a Mason what their sacred word is. And they'll say, I don't know that. They lie, and they're told to lie to you. Then say, I know what it is. It's Abaddon. And they'll probably sink right through the floor. How did you know that? Well, tell them. It's from Texe MARRS, who was reading Coyle's Masonic Encyclopedia. It pays to go right to the source, doesn't it? Sure. I know about you Masons. I read your encyclopedias. I read your dictionaries. I know what you are. But do you know Jesus? Evidently you don't. That's the lost word. And it's been found by millions of believing Christians. And thank God for them. I'm Texe MARRS. You've been listening to Power of Prophecy. My prayer is you'll tune in each week during the same time and discover the power of prophecy.